shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia the Movies. So, this year is the 25th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It was released back in May, end of May of 1999. And for the generation that came after me, and perhaps for some of the people from my own generation, Star Wars Episode 1 was a huge letdown. And I can tell you right now that it had been 16 years between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. And the expectations were so high, that there was no way in hell they could ever have been met with that movie. No way. Not to mention that with Star Wars, it's a very curious fandom, because on one hand, it's not enough to just make a Star Wars movie. Let's just say, before the sequel trilogy came into being, it wasn't enough to just do a Star Wars trilogy, or a movie rather, or even when the prequel trilogy came out, it wasn't enough. It had to be fantabulastic. Now, depending on who you speak to, the original trilogy, that is the one that started with just the title Star Wars back in 1977, Return of the Jedi was the least of the series. It was considered that by some. For some, that was the best Star Wars movie. Depends who you ask, I guess. In general, most people liked or loved the Star Wars trilogy, and it came into being that during the re-release of the trilogy, the special edition, in theaters in 1997, it was considered the holy trilogy. I heard a lot of this from people that loved Star Wars, without question. Like, you couldn't say one negative thing. What a different time, as opposed to now. So, that is not to say about the original trilogy, just about Star Wars in general nowadays, that's been Disneyfied and so on and so forth. Now, when Phantom Menace came out, though, there were people that were so mortified that it even included, and I read this recently, I remember reading this before, that even Marsha Lucas, George Lucas's ex-wife, saw the film at a private screening and then started crying in her car after seeing it. That this was just like a massive disappointment. Star Wars is not, let's add a little context here, Star Wars is not like Star Trek, or really any other franchise. Because it's a supernova. It's beyond what is expected. Way beyond. And Star Trek doesn't get that. If there's a new Star Trek movie or TV series, it's treated with, I don't know, I guess could you say kids' gloves? I don't know, whatever. The expectations are not supernova, right? Beyond the edges of the universe. That's what Star Wars is. So, when Phantom Menace came out, now I saw the film 2 weeks after it came out, and I've talked about this over 10, 11 years ago, I guess now. But I saw it 2 weeks after it came out. I was sort of interested because I liked the second trailer even more than even the first teaser. Both are quite good. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to definitely see this. Now, I was always a Star Wars fan. That changed after Return of the Jedi, which I still like. I think it's a good movie, but it's the least of the series. It wasn't the conclusion I expected from the original trilogy, but let's leave that aside for now. I was a massive Star Wars fan back when I was, 8, 9 years old, and subscribed to the Star Wars newsletter, so it was a big deal for me. And Yoda and Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, having all the trading cards from all three of the movies, and it was just a big thing. And then came Return of the Jedi, and I just didn't feel it was a satisfying conclusion. I still liked it very much. I didn't think it was a satisfying conclusion. So, cut to 16 years later, there comes the Phantom Menace, and I watched the movie, and it didn't overwhelm me. It didn't exactly underwhelm me, But I had sort of a similar reaction to what I had with Return of the Jedi. It was just fine. It was all right, and even to this day, I still think it's all right. I can tell you right now, it's not a movie I'm rushing out to see in theaters, because I have the DVD, and it's just not a movie. It's not like the original trilogy at all. I mean, I would see the original trilogy again in theaters. I really would. But Phantom Menace, not up to that level, not even close. But not a bad movie. But if you knew anybody back then, they hated that movie. I mean, it was deplorable to them. It was an affront to their sensibilities, and they felt that it raped their childhood, and that's where that whole thing started. As a matter of fact, the critical consensus began really with that movie, in a sense that where it is now, right? So if you love a movie from Star Wars, let's just say Star Wars for a second. If it's a Star Wars movie and everyone loves it, more or less, then you must love it. If everyone hates it, you also must hate it. Whether it's a TV series, network, well, I should say, any of the series that they do now on Disney. There has to be a consensus, and you have to adhere to it. That's really where Star Wars is now. But my feeling is that was always there. Even with the original trilogy, you could say, well, I love Empire, but original Star Wars is better, or Return of the Jedi is the best, or whatever. Generally speaking, nobody was going to say they hated it. They never, that's just not, at least in the circle of people that I knew, except for Cinefantastique or Starlog magazines, which used to be such a big thing, they were critical of the Star Wars movies. It was the only time, really, when you read major criticisms, other than some film critics, but just in general, science fiction fans, whatever, or people that really love to talk about science fiction, in particular with those two magazines, it was a different thing. Now, cut to today, and in fact, in light of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that came out over a year ago, there seems to be a lot of love for the prequel trilogy. So who are these people? They're not the same people from back then. So what age group are we talking about? For me personally, I like the prequel trilogy. I also like the sequel trilogy, so you can shoot me right now. But not literally. I don't really have an issue. I mean, Star Wars to me is just one of those things that I don't have supernova expectations. I don't expect the greatest thing since sliced bread. Because the original trilogy wasn't the greatest thing since sliced bread. The Empire Strikes Back is one of the best movies ever made, I think. It's a thoroughly entertaining cosmic adventure with great characters. They really enhanced the relationships between the characters. They did a lot of great things in that. And it has a somewhat, dark ending. But I just don't have any fidelity to any specific opinion. I express my own. On the other hand, too, I don't have supernova expectations. So anytime someone mentions Star Wars, it's like, yeah, okay, well, there's too much Star Wars. I think there is too much. So quality is going to go out the window with some versus others. Mandalorian Season 3, which I still actually haven't finished watching, is a bit underwhelming. It's not nearly as good as the first two seasons. I admit to that. It is. But I don't have to agree with what they're saying. Oh, well, it's woke, it's this. No, that doesn't enter the picture for me. It's about how it's written and how it's done. The pacing is way off, I think, in the new season of Mandalorian, as much as I like the characters. But that's just an opinion. My point is, if Star Wars doesn't work, I don't live or die by it. It's okay. This is just another series of movies. I'm not a 9-year-old anymore, so I don't have that sense of enthusiasm that I once had when I was a kid. And Phantom Menace betrayed that for some people, and that's the point. Now, at that time, I was, how old? Let's see, I would say I was about 28 years old when I saw the Phantom Menace. Well, that sounds about right. I didn't have that expectations of a 9 or 8-year-old when I saw the original trilogy, because I'd seen so many other movies that Star Wars to me has always been what it was, escapism, that's all. And either you're going to enjoy it or you're not. Another chapter is another chapter. That's it. But I'm curious about the love now for Phantom Menace. Where the hell is this coming from, and who is such a fan of the Phantom Menace that they think that this is the glorious Star Wars that they miss? And then I realized, well, it's been 25 years. So a whole new generation of young people that saw Phantom Menace when they were kids probably think it's one of the great movies of all time, which is fine. That's their opinion, because that's what we thought when I was younger when we saw Star Wars in 1977. So, and probably a whole new generation was introduced when the original trilogy was re-released in 1997, you see. So it's a new generation, another generation, but you know, who are the people that really love it? That's the real question. And I've noticed that this has also happened with regards to Indiana Jones. Even a couple of critics, I won't name who they are because you probably know who they are already, but it doesn't matter. In light of the Dial of Destiny, they have a reversal of opinion about Crystal Skull. And a couple of them saw it again after 15 years and said, you know what, this actually is a pretty damn good movie. Not a great one, but not bad. I think I was a bit wrong 15 years earlier, and I'm dead serious. That's kind of where it's at. So is that really what's happened with Phantom Menace? I don't know. But it's not a movie I want to go see again in the theater. Probably Attack of the Clones, maybe Revenge of the Sith, both of which I did see twice in theaters at the time. Because I found them far more enjoyable than The Phantom Menace, which is a fine movie. It's okay, but it's not a great movie. But there are some sequences that are really quite startling, very well done. So, I don't know. What is going on? Do any of you know what's happening now that there's a love for The Phantom Menace? Where is it coming from? Is it people from my age group, say in their 50s? Is it from a new generation that was introduced to it 25 years ago? What's happening? I don't know. Let me your comments. Let me your thoughts. And thank you to all the new subscribers who have subscribed to my channel. If you are a new subscriber, please hit the notification bell for future uploads. And reviews are forthcoming. I am working on a project, still trying to finish it, but I'm going to try to do some reviews in the next couple of days of some older movies. But anyway, let me your thoughts. Tell me, are you a Star Wars fan? Are you not a Star Wars fan? Do you hate or love Phantom Menace, or you love it more now than you did back then? Let me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. And I guess that's all I got to say about that. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.